Coming up on this episode of Once a Duck.
The crazy thing about it, you can't blame it on the rain because the Ducks, I thought, played the best in the heaviest rain. I thought when the rain was coming down the hardest, that was when they were really charging offensively and doing what they wanted to do.
All that and more on this episode of the Once a Duck podcast.
Where's your favorite place to take college game day? And I say every time, Eugene, Oregon.
Folks, welcome back to the Once a Duck podcast. I am Sam Schmidt. With me, as always, the one, the only, Nick Cody. You see the name right there at the bottom of his screen. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Actually, it took me about a week to dry off, and thankfully we had a bye week after that Wisconsin game. It was really good to see you down there in Eugene, and thank you to Mike and everybody else that we were able to see. T-Rod, Mark, everybody at the tailgates. Shout out to everybody that we were able to experience that weekend with, and thanks to everybody that made my girlfriend feel so at home. Man, the worst part of the weekend, driving back, just as soon as we passed the Gateway Mall, she goes, "When can we come back?" And I start looking at ticket prices. Well, no, I didn't while I was driving, but I already knew those ticket prices. But again, guys, thank you. And for those of you that are new to this channel or haven't already followed us, follow us at Once a Duck on all the social medias and individually at Nick R. Cody or at Samuel101TS. If you guys want to follow us and see our opinions individually on all the social medias, that's where you can find us. And thank you guys if you stuck around and been longtime members of this podcast. I'm very excited for our guest today because been a longtime fan and somebody that's supported us, not just through our podcast, but individually always been there and very supportive. So can't wait to have Rian Winter on this podcast. But until we get to that, we got to break down this Wisconsin game. We were both there. And you know what? I had underestimated the torrential downpour. I was definitely anticipating some rain. I brought the ponchos, but I was not anticipating so much that it would devastate kind of our offensive tempo, or at least, the game's offensive tempo for both teams.
Well, you know what, Nick? It never rains at Ducks Stadium, but boy, oh boy, does it occasionally pour. Because my goodness, it was coming down. When it was coming down, it was coming down. The first quarter was actually kind of almost a little too nice.
Most of the first half.
It was a little scary at first. You could see it coming was the thing. You could see the gray clouds moving in from the horizon, slowly making their way over. You looked up and you went, that doesn't look very good whenever that's going to get here. And when it got there, it downpoured. I mean, it was coming sideways and all over. It was a mess. It was rainy and wet. And I think the part that wasn't as obvious on TV, it was windy as all heck. The wind was whipping around Autzen Stadium, making things difficult on both teams. That being said, though, before the weather got bad, Oregon's offense was already kind of struggling a little bit. Let's break this thing down and move through this game. First and foremost, the Ducks come out and run the onside kick to start the game. They recover it. Some tremendous work. Atticus Sappington, Naheem offered there to be able to pick it up off the turf. Oregon takes over. And after that, 4 plays and Wisconsin has the ball right back, -2 yards on the drive. It was another one of those situations where Oregon was able to pick up a decent little chunk on first down, wasn't able to get anything on second or third, and ended up having a sack on 4th down. After that, Nick, it took 1, 2, 3, 4. It wasn't until Oregon's 5th possession of the day where points were finally scored. It was a part of a 16-play, 99-yard drive that lasted 8 minutes and 24 seconds. Finally got the ball into the end zone for Oregon. Before we get into that drive, just tell us a little bit, what did you see happening out on the field? What was slowing down this Oregon offense early in this ballgame?
Well, first and foremost, guys, timing. The timing of this game felt really off, and in my individual experience, just getting there, the timing was off. So the ability of this team, guys, was really influenced by that Dante Moore injury. But even before that, it was really difficult, not only with the conditions on the field, but I really didn't like that initial script on that first series. It really felt like that was an opportunity to go out there and get points. And I hopefully look at this Oregon team and think they're going to look at this film and seeing so many opportunities they could have taken this game before the weather was really involved, and recognize going into this next week that you really can't risk those opportunities to especially have the passing game open up, because regardless of your talent at quarterback or wide receiver, when the rain is pouring down the way it was in some of those the points of this game, you really can't rely on the passing game. You have to get it done in the ground game, or at least control field position. So I at least felt really, really good about Oregon's ability to do that. But man, yeah, those first few possessions, wasn't really happy with our offensive production. And looking back on the film, um, again, we eventually things evened out in the running game, but there were just so many opportunities that we couldn't make happen in the passing game. And credit to that again is on that Wisconsin defense that gave a lot more pressure than we expected, and we saw that sack issue come up again.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned Wisconsin zone because, yeah, besides Indiana earlier this season, Wisconsin ran the most zone of any team Oregon's seen all year,
Yep.
and it was effective. I mean, I think we've recognized that Oregon is really good at beating you with their speed and with their abject athleticism. Once you're spread out all over the field and it comes down to timing and it comes down to receivers finding their pockets of space, that's something that Oregon struggled with a lot more, and finding the timing to get the balls into those pockets of space has kind of been a problem throughout this season. One thing I'm very glad that Oregon did in this game, though, is they insisted upon the run game. The run game, what did it do? It insisted upon itself. And it really, really did in this particular ball game. It wasn't something that they stopped going to. In fact, by the end of the game, both Jordan Davison and Noah Whittington combined had 30 rushes in this ball game. That's something that I really like to see, especially down the stretch once you realized it was going to be a grinded out type of ball game. They were able to stick with it, and eventually they were able to pound Wisconsin into submission the way that they needed to. This quarterback injury, it didn't happen until the first drive of the second half. So we had the entire first half with Dante Moore in there running the offense. At halftime, it was 7-0. This Oregon team was still certainly trying to find their footing a little bit. And then, as we mentioned, first drive out of the locker room, Moore goes down, right? I believe it was the third play of the game. They had Moore go for like a little fourth or fifth play, excuse me. It was in that drive. Regardless, they have Moore kind of just run for a little quarterback draw right up the middle, goes down. You see on the replay, it looks like a forearm got in there, hit him across the nose. Not sure if there was any kind of break or anything like that. Nobody said anything, but for sure an injury that was going to get a guy leaking either way. Brock Thomas comes in and really, is a pretty steady hand on the wheel for the rest of that ball game. Tell us a little bit about what you saw from the Eugene native, and also how you saw the offense change once he came into the ball game.
Well, yeah, congrats to Brock Thomas. You go out in there in such a difficult situation where, and you got thrown in the fire. And again, we've already seen at Rutgers, people were asking, all right, why is this the guy getting the reps? Well, you saw a little bit right there. 4 for 4, 1 touchdown to an offensive lineman. This guy has the right touch, and yeah, got I believe the team out of some bad situations. If you were watching the game, more importantly, I think the timing of the injury really made Oregon realize how much they had to rely on this run game. The only concern I have is why Deer Hill Jr. wasn't involved more, because it felt like we become a team that has split the carries between Whittington and Davison pretty much down the middle for the main play, but we had I don't know if it's injuries. Lamar is, I believe, injured, or didn't get any touches. But Deer Hill Jr. has to get more touches to, I think really make this offense. And then in that same level, get Sadiq touches out of the backfield in these situations. Like, I really think that there are opportunities right now where you have a guy, especially in the red zone, that if you just get him the ball anywhere within the line of scrimmage, that's a guy I trust to get it to the end zone, block set up or not. So when you get in those tough situations in weather, rain, just trust your athletes. And I felt like there were times that instead we're trying to ultimately play to a script more than our players.
Well, and I will mention, Broad Thomas did finish 4 of 4.
Yep.
One of those probably certainly should have been intercepted, went off the hands of the defender and ended up miraculously being caught by Decorian Moore. That being said, though, besides that one play, he was pretty solid throughout, did a good job of orchestrating the offense. At that point, the run game had primarily taken over. One thing that I do want to mention on the D'Air Hill point is that it does seem as if it is a little bit of a tell once he's in the game what Oregon's going to do. It seems as if he's one of those guys where when 23 is on the field, they're either rushing it to the outside or they're trying to get it to this guy in space. He's not necessarily somebody who's in there to be blocking the same way that you get from Davison, you get from Lamar, or you even get from Whittington. And it's part of why I've been such a big believer in keeping Whittington as your technical starting back, just because he's the one who's the most capable of doing the largest variety of things. D'Air Hill's in the game. He has 2 carries. One of them is for 27 yards. One of them is for 1 yard. That's exactly what you're going to be getting on a regular basis for him. Whereas the 6.4 average on 16 carries with a long of 20 from Jordan Davison, that's a little bit more accurate. He's going to be getting chunks every time, some chunks a little bigger than others. Whittington, he can do a little bit of all of it. He had 14 carries, 97 yards, a really, really strong game from him as well. I think that really, as Oregon continues to be creative with this offense, we're going to be able to see more of these guys in opportunities and to be able to exploit defense's weaknesses. That being said, though, 23 on the field almost does feel like such a tell at this point. You put him in there in situationally when it makes the most sense.
I mean, I agree, but if you look back to D'Anthony Thomas's first season, there's opportunities for you to put him in there. And even when D'Anthony was supposed to be the blocking back, you're still an eligible receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So there were times, and specifically highlights, that many people would recognize if we pulled him up right here. D'Anthony Thomas is supposed to be blocking a guy off the edge on my side, and I'm literally blocking my guy and kind of freaking out because and then D'Anthony Thomas gets a touchdown. There's just guys you put out there on the football field, and you give them an opportunity sometimes to surprise you. And regardless, you think if he could make that block in space, he might be that guy that squeaks out and gets you a touchdown because he's the last eligible receiver that is within a throwable range for your quarterback, especially when you get down to backup quarterbacks. So that's just one of those things that I watch this game and I think, man, we did feel like we had a dominant presence in this game with the way our defense played, thankfully. But our offense was not able to get out there and perform the way we expected. And it felt like a little bit of Wisconsin kind of bringing everything they could on their front line on the defense. But it was also us not quite utilizing our offensive weapons the way I was really hoping us to in those first couple drives.
And that's the part where I think we are going to completely agree. I think there was a lack of, I don't want to say lack of creativity, but there was a lack of, feeding the studs, as they like to say. I don't think a lot of guys were necessarily getting the touches, getting the looks. And to be fair, part of that is, as we mentioned earlier, on the fact that Oregon has had a hard time playing these types of defenses, being able to work the timing that's necessary to get those studs the ball. You want to have guys like Gary Bryant Jr., Decorian Moore, Malik Benson. You want these guys to have the ball with an opportunity. Part of that is the timing working out for them to be able to get that ball. Part of it is Dante seeing Kenyon Sadiq when he's coming over the middle instead of looking deep down the sideline for somebody else, or being able to see Gary Bryant on a little bit of a wheel route when something else, his eyes might be elsewhere.
But there's something also there to be challenged of this Oregon offense isn't quite in the state where it can dictate to the defense, because when you are able to sit there and go, okay, whether you're going to play zone or man, we're going to have the schemes for you. That used to be kind of like the way you could catch people in tempo. And now with the rules of college football and everything that's going on, I'm not sure you're able to even the amount of time you even have to coach your players in your system with the transfer portal to get everybody on the same page that way. Man, it would be really, really difficult to do in today's modern game the same way we were able to do back in my day, if you really think about it.
Well, you know what, Nick? I think we do have to talk about some of the things offensively that we did really like from this game. There were a few things. A guy who really stuck out to me, even though he only had 3 catches, DeCorian Moore was doing a really, really good job of making use of what he had, whether it was being able to take advantage of that tip ball on the sideline, whether it was the play that he was able to make, getting himself just a little bit of space to be able to help out Brock Thomas on a big conversion. I thought he was really solid in this game. Also, Jeremiah McClellan, 3 catches for 40 yards. All 3 of those catches seemed like they were big ones. And I mean, trust me, when you only have 13 completed passes throughout a game, yeah, they're all going to feel a little bit bigger. He was phenomenal in that game. And then obviously, we love a big man touchdown on here.
Yeah, if you Janoris Wilson with the 2 pumps, as he clarified, at least 2 pumps out there, already had it. And again, his second touchdown as an offensive lineman. You go down as an offensive lineman, legend there for all of us. You get most people that are legends in Eugene get free beers. If you're an offensive line legend that gets touchdowns, buy that man a donut somewhere. If you ever see it, let's make that the new trend here in Eugene. Always wanted to get that Oregon touchdown. Problem is, I was always talking to Coach Osborne on kick returns, so probably wasn't the best way for me to try and get there in the end zone. But congratulations, and man, not only a really well developed and set up play and celebration, but you give it up for Brock Thomas, because just that guy, he took a couple licks in that game, and just to be able to set it up in the red zone and have the confidence to be able to throw it to a lineman, that takes balls.
Yeah, and he took, I mean, obviously he took it on his head, but he took that targeting. That was a big hit. That was a big hit he took. Yeah. He was able to pop right up after that. Was very glad to see that from Brock. A question that I think a lot of people have kind of been debating the last 2 weeks since this ball game, and I guess even more feverishly after some conversations that were had from the Rutgers game. I'm just going to ask you flat out, Nick, from everything you've seen from this season, from last season, from spring games, all the available evidence at your fingertips, 5 isn't available to start a ball game. Let's say this coming week's ball game at Iowa for whatever reason. As far as we know, there's no reason why he shouldn't be out there on Saturday, but you never quite know what could be the case, what could have happened. Are you having Brock Thomas get out there and start that game, or are you going with one of the other guys?
Man, that's tough. I've always been really bad in evaluating the quarterback position. Back to when I was even playing, man. I was Mariota and Bryce Betcher was not yeah. No, No, not Bryce Betcher.
Brian Bennett?
Brian Bennett.
It was another BB name. It was going to
Again, the alliteration got me. I remember sitting there going, man, both these guys would probably really, really kill in this offense. And then I also think back to the Darren Thomas and Nate Costa. I really thought both of those guys, the competition, again, I think is what really drives these college football teams. So we don't have the insight to practice. If it's something behind the lines that is something to deal with NIL or transfer portal that we don't know about, maybe there's something there. But if Brock Thomas is beating people out in practice, the coaches are going to believe that, and they have to lean into that. They have to know that's the person they trust with the offense in hand. And if he comes out and has to start because of maybe the bloody nose or whatever injury like lingering, I really trust our coaches right now in their evaluation process. But you say that at the same time, you know that all their trust could completely be because that somebody doesn't want to play. They're already in the portal. We may not know. Who knows at this point? The biggest thing is Oregon going to Iowa was always going to be a challenge. Whoever was at quarterback, it feels like at least anticipating that struggle is a good way to go into this game.
Well, you know what? I think a good way to go into the interview we have coming up is by first hitting our players of the game from this Oregon-Wisconsin matchup. I know there's a bunch of guys we want to mention. I think we can both say, look, despite anything else, just the fact that you came in, dealt with the storm, weathered it literally and figuratively, led to 2 of the 3 scoring drives. Brock Thomas is on there.
Brock Thomas has to be on there. The guy had just a solid will to come in and again, at least who is going to be prepared for that kind of weather besides a local guy? And again,
And he still said that was some of the worst weather he ever played in.
Again, that was some of the worst weather any of us have ever seen. I'm telling you right now, I think the only thing comparable for me was probably one of my spring games. We'll get into that a little bit later. Yeah, obviously, I got to give it to Janoris Wilson. Not just not only the ability to get the touchdown, have a 2-pump celebration, but to fit into that tiny little jersey and get it off. What, 35? Ooh, we were asking that individually, who's 35 out there? We should have known because that's the one guy that can pull it off. Janoris Wilson, congratulations and thank you for being a once a Duck O-line beast representative.
A defensive player that I'm going to mention right here, who you usually go with, but I'm going to bring him up today because I thought he had actually one of his stronger personal games of the season. Bryce Betcher went out there, 6 total tackles, 4 of them by himself, 4 solo. Oftentimes, the criticism I'll have, especially this linebacker group with Oregon, is that sure, they might rack up a lot of tackles, but how many of them are actually by themselves? How many require other people to come help? How many of those tackles are made because you didn't make the play you should have to prevent it from even getting there in the first place? This was one of those games where I thought he was doing all of that really well. He also had a tackle for loss and 2 pass deflections as well, showing right there, yeah, this is another example of a time he is getting there and making the play before the play has a chance to happen. Really love seeing that game out of Bryce this past 2 weekends ago.
Yep, and just throwing it out on defense. Tatum Tuioti getting out there, and you already said, guys, I mentioned too much, so that's who I first thought might be the guy, but no, he caught me. And then, Dalen Austin gets the interception there. You got to count that.
Yep.
Going into, you want to take special teams? It's pretty easy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he's been our special team star throughout the entire season until somebody returns multiple kicks in a game. I still think this guy is probably going to be our special teams player of the week every single week. James Ferguson Reynolds, 5 punts, averaged 41.2 yards per. 3 of those landed back inside of the 20. Just some phenomenal work from the Aussie punter out there yet again. Really, in a Big Ten style ball game, just controlling the field position in a fantastic way.
If there isn't any kind of way you could get excited going from a bye week into a game at a team like Iowa, this is the guy that gets you excited. Well, besides our next guest.
Besides our next guest, who I cannot wait to have in here, Nick. Before we get to him, we should address it. We should ask people about it, or at least I need to ask you about it. We saw tie-dye jerseys on the field. What did you think? How did you enjoy it? Was it fun? I need your thoughts.
We saw tie-dye numbers on the field.
Jerseys with tie-dye. There we go.
We didn't fully commit, and thank you, Dan Lanning, for whatever you overturned. I love everything that we usually do with the uniforms, but I don't want to know anything that a guy only a couple years older than me had to say. Maybe not yet. So, with all that aside, I gotta say, love the execution, and honestly, the way it turned out with the rain, if we really would have gone full tie-dye, it would have kind of ruined the entire moment. So, at least with it being mostly black and on the numbers, very, very fun. And with the number 90 jerseys that were being sold, that at least showed you so much of the tie-dye that it really made the whole Grateful Dead concept come forward. And guys, if you haven't already checked out our episode with Neil Everett for that Grateful Dead episode, please go back and check that out. It's one of our best guests, and well, best besides all the ones we have upcoming the rest of this season.
Speaking of guests who are upcoming, Nick, this is somebody who I'm very, very excited that we were able to get on this week. We talk to him often about being able to come in here and join us. I think we might try to start making this at least an annual thing to have him pop on the show. It's always worth it. Why don't you set up our next guest?
All right, guys, if you don't already know, then you probably aren't that tuned into the YouTube Oregon space, because Sports Chat 503, my man Ryan Winter, he has been doing this for longer than Once a Duck has. If you haven't seen me on his Tuesday night chats, then you probably need to tune in, chat with me. I'm usually sometime in the gym right there, and just can't wait to hear his takes, and especially not just on Oregon football. Man, this guy has some great Thanksgiving and pie takes that you're going to want to hear this season. So give it up for my man, Sports Chat 503, Ryan Winter. All right, joining us today is, if you guys follow, at least online, this guy is a legend, somebody that we've kind of patterned our YouTube careers off of. Many of you know him as Sports Chat 503. We know him as Ryan Winter. Give it up for our Once a Duck guest. Thanks for joining us, Ryan. First and foremost, my first question is, what is the biggest change you've seen in your time on the YouTube experience doing live streams and independent videos, not just with the Oregon crowd, but just the engagement on a national level?
I think everybody's got a YouTube channel. I freaking love it, dude. I that's what I was telling people back then. I was like, dude, do the YouTube thing. I'm still trying to promote YouTube. I think it's fantastic. I literally think everybody should have a YouTube channel, and just do whatever you're gonna do. Say what you're gonna say. You're passionate about the environment. Talk about the environment. Somebody's out there listening. You know, when I first started, we started in 2010. It felt like it had just started. YouTube started in 2005, and it felt like it was just getting off the ground, and there really wasn't that much going on with it. And I felt like there was going to be a really cool opportunity for people to just chat like they're at the bar. And then with the live streams are just phenomenal. They've opened up a whole new channel, and it makes it more, live. It's a live chat, and then you can really get into it. So I love it. I'm pro YouTube. I love your guys' channel. I love everybody who's doing everything on YouTube. Freaking phenomenal. Big fan.
Well, we appreciate the support. We always appreciate what you're doing, Ryan. And one thing that I wanted to ask you, kind of in line with that same question, just really quickly before we dive into the Oregon specific stuff, what has been like a favorite online or YouTube moment of yours? Like something that happened either live or something you were able to set up that really excited you and you were super happy to be able to bring your followers?
I mean, I think it's, I think the live streams really capture the moment. I think there's obviously times when you do a video, like for example, the video where we're in the Rose Bowl, we're getting, just our heads chopped off in the first half. And I do a video like at halftime, and I'm just like, I don't even know what the hell happened. There are so many people who love those moments, who are not Duck fans, who love to pile on. Beav fans love that. Husky fans love that. Trojan fans love that. Obviously the team you're playing. But I get a lot of positivity out of it. I get a lot of people who are like, man, hey, respect for this guy. Like in the Indiana one, I did a video afterward, and the comments were so positive. It was just like, hey, man, congratulations. You've got somebody who tries to do it right. And I was raised with sportsmanship. So I really like that idea of, just kind of bringing the community together, having that opportunity, after the loss to Washington, the missed field goal. I drove back, it felt like in about an hour and a half to Portland. I got on the live stream, and it was a really kind of a cathartic moment. We were talking about pies and everything else. And it was just, I like to go off the rails a little bit. I like to talk about whatever we're going to talk about. And I love to just build the community. So anytime I see people at games, people, recognize me, they come up to me, they see me. It's a very enjoyable moment. I would say this year, the single moment was I'm at Penn State. Here I am in the whiteout. And I look over and I see a guy with the damn Sports Chat 503 hat on. I was like, what is the deal here? I literally had him on to talk about the experience. I thought it was such a crazy event that somebody from the other side of the country, he's from Virginia, buys a hat, he's at the Penn State game, and I see my own merch there. It's kind of a surreal moment because, for my channel, I've never tried to promote it. I've never tried to do anything really with it. It's just like, it is what it is. I kind of like the idea of like the club that nobody knows about, the little area where it's like, keep it underground. Don't try to like really blow it up, and I've always kind of thought that, not that my sports jet's like the club everybody wants to go to, but I like doing different, and everybody's got their professional deal. They're doing their thing. They're interviewing people. They're doing this stuff. I'm trying to do it a little different. So I really respect everybody out there in the YouTube world. When they meet me and they come together with me, it's all positive. That's the thing I like the best. A lot of people think that like Twitter's a cesspool. I keep hearing it. Oh, it's so terrible, blah, blah, blah. I have a good time with it. I don't really see that negative part of it. It could be just me, but I just don't see a lot of that negativity.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining our even littler circle and being a part of this. And congratulations on being one of the few people in 2025 still finding positivity in the internet, man.
Well curated.
It's been a struggle. It's been a struggle for most of us. But, man, again, a lot of it, I appreciate your positivity, and I do want to touch on that Penn State game. You went all the way out there. I was joking with Sam before this broadcast. Concept for you as a fan, and I think this should only be fair moving forward. I think if you have to spend over a certain dollar amount for a ticket, if the coach gets fired in the subsequent weeks, shouldn't you get some kind of like an insurance or a stipend back? I can imagine that being out there as a fan, your Penn State experience had to be amazing, but is it at all kind of tarnished by the season that Penn State has had and firing their coach, James Franklin?
I mean, I guess so, but it's also in a weird way. Like I kind of got addicted to Penn State in a weird way. I started watching their podcasts. I started watching their thing. And then it just became a drama. It became its own soap opera. And I was absolutely enthralled at a front row seat. I felt like we were involved with it somehow. I think we were like chapter 1 and, or maybe chapter 1 through 10 had already happened. Cause I'm telling you, the first thing I noticed when I went to Penn State was those people didn't like their coach. They would come up to me at the tailgate and say, "Hey man, we really like your coach." They would literally start the conversation with that. Like not even a hello, welcome to Penn State. Like, "We really like your coach." I said, "Well, that's great." And they're like, "We don't like ours." It's kind of one of those people who's like, "Yeah, how was your weekend?" They want you to ask them how their weekend was. They're like, we don't like our coach." And for whatever reason, the guy won. The guy did a good job. He didn't win the big games, obviously, but he did a pretty good job there. I mean, he's a pretty good track record, but he just rubbed them the wrong way. And the people didn't like him. And of course, we love Dan Lanning. I mean, he's done nothing but say the right thing every single step of the way. The guy's an absolute animal. And we love that about him. And so, yeah, I think that the Penn State thing, I think you're right. There should have been, it feels like you got kind of robbed a little bit with it, but the experience was fantastic. The stadium was unreal. The biggest thing I took away from it, man, they gave you a stadium map of the tailgate that was on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And inside the middle of the paper, like the size of a peanut M&M, was the stadium.
Yeah.
The map, it was huge. I mean, miles and miles of tailgate. And the tailgate that we were in was like a perfectly groomed grass lot that was fenced in on the edges. It was just used for a tailgate. I mean, it is in the middle of nowhere. This place is literally in the middle of nowhere. And they had just tons and tons and tons of real estate. And they filled it up. I mean, the stadium's twice as big as Oregon. It was absolutely loud. It wasn't loud because of the crowd. It was loud because of the music. The music was insanely loud. And of course, the crowd gets amped up too, but I've never heard anything like the music other than Husky Stadium. Husky Stadium has that same kind of vibe where they just crank the music.
Yeah.
It was a great environment. But in saying that, I wish I was getting on a plane tomorrow and going to Iowa, and I'm not.
Well, you know what? Before we get to the Iowa conversation, which is one that I know we're going to definitely dive into, I know we both wish that we were jumping on that plane as well to make that trip. We got to talk a little bit about this last game Oregon played against Wisconsin. A little bit of an ugly game on the field, but Eugene itself was beautiful that weekend. So much fun being in and around the city, whether it was the artwork at the airport, the artwork at the Nike store, just the vibes that everybody brought to that tie-dye out, the uniforms, the team, everything was so much fun, the Grateful Dead themes. Tell us a little bit about your experience with that weekend and how you took in and appreciated what Eugene brought to the table.
Well, that was literally the high point of the season for me on that one. Big time. I mean, I'm telling you, I normally walk around with green and yellow glasses like Nick just put on there. I had like the kaleidoscope eyes, man. I was going for it. I was completely immersed in the world. Grateful Dead is my favorite band. And I've absolutely adore this band, and the experience with Autzen Stadium and everything else, and the Eugene community, everything else coming together, it felt like my world's colliding. A childhood friend of mine, one of my oldest childhood friends, works at Nike, put on the Nike party on Thursday, and it had the band there. She invited me out there. Had Jerry Allen was there. Got to see a bunch of Ducks, bunch of my friends who work at Nike, and that set the tone right there. That was just an absolute blast. Beautiful weather. And then, of course, game day, it just started pouring. And I think it's probably a top 5 rain game for me. I mean, when the rain was happening, it was really happening. Of course, we got the Cal games in there. That UCLA game from a couple of years ago was super wet. You know, of course, the ones from the 80s, I could keep going back like Abacus or something on these rain. But
my only comparison was the spring game, my freshman year.
Yeah, we've had some weird spring games. We've also had spring games that are super hot. Yeah. I remember some spring games where I'm like, God almighty, I'm like dying out here. But yeah, no, it was super fun. I thought the Eugene community did a great job with it. It's perfect for them. Get the tie-dye out. I did a little my own tie-dye merch for it. It was fantastic. I had a great time with it. I really leaned into it. I love tie-dye. I wear tie-dye all the time in the summertime, you know. I feel like if you're a fat guy, if you're not wearing a Hawaiian shirt or some tie-dye in the summertime, you're missing out, because people just love to party. You can lighten a mood just by bringing in some tie-dye to the room. And then I think when the game broke out, I think people were pretty disappointed. I think people were really excited about this whole party, and then the game broke out, and they were like, you know, it wasn't like people weren't excited for a win. You're always excited for a win, but the way it happened, you have, Dante going out, you get the story of the, Eugene guy coming in to help at the end, but it really didn't really quite get that big exclamation point that I think people really wanted for that Wisconsin game. And I also think that it was very cool to see the Wisconsin fans come out, because the Wisconsin Grateful Dead community is also super strong. And the Grateful Dead played tons of shows at University of Wisconsin as well. So I thought it was really cool. They have a section called the Grateful Red, I think is like one of their student sections or something. And they have shirts with the dancing bear and like a red shirt. So the Grateful Dead is very popular in the Midwest. And I just thought it was really great. And then I think, of course, playing all the music, everything. But I'm a history teacher. I'm a high school social studies teacher. So I always think it's cool to teach the next generation about this stuff. And so there's a bunch of kids who had no idea about it. We had a bunch of recruits that came out. I had one of them on my show, and I was like, what do you think about the Grateful Dead? He's like, I didn't even know they were a band. It's like, so he learned all about that during that time. That's kind of cool. Pass it down to the next generation.
One thing I wanted to ask about and give mention to is your son, Darby Allen photo, for anybody out there on the social medias.
Yeah.
Gets the opportunity to now work for the team, been able to follow him for a while. How awesome is it to have not only, the connections you have through the things you've done, but now your son is kind of taking it a step further and actually has that access to the team directly. How much fun and how proud does that make you as a father?
Oh, dude, it's incredible. My boy, man. Yeah. So Darby Winter photo, that's my guy. Darby, his middle name is Aloysius. Darby is a fantastic kid. He always has been. He's always done the right thing. He was a great teammate. I coached him all the way through. He played sports all the way through his life, and he was always a really good teammate. I remember him being a little guy in soccer, and, he never really was be in the front scoring goals, but as soon as the guy would score the goal, he would just be the first one to be like, yeah, right behind him, pump everybody up. He's always been a great fan. The kid's been to Autzen Stadium his entire life. He's seen over 100 games at Autzen before he was in high school.
Yeah, wasn't it, not to interrupt, but his first game Utah?
No, his first game was the Oklahoma State Blotty's last game.
But in Autzen though.
No, the Holiday Bowl.
But I mean, his first game.
Oh,
in
my
Autzen,
bad,
though.
my bad. Her first game at Autzen was no, the first game after the
Purdue?
first game at Autzen, I think, is the first game after Bilotti. No, first game with Chip coming home.
It was
Purdue.
Purdue, yeah.
Purdue.
My very first game. That's the one.
Yeah. The game after the Boise State game.
Yes, my very first playing time.
That's awesome, dude.
I
That's
remember
awesome.
that.
Yeah. So yeah, no. So he's got like a whole lineage, and I've always kind of joked that he's like, the last Jedi. And my whole family went to Oregon, and everything is now like funneled into him, and so he has a lot of responsibility. And so I've put it on him, that I've tried to create the super fan. We've gone to everything. I've tried to expose him to everything. But he's always been really tech savvy. He's great with computers. He built his own computer when he was young, and he's always been really good with tech. And so when he got into photography, half of it is taking pictures, half of it's editing. And then the whole idea of what to do with it afterward, creativity, and everything else is going to come with it. But he took the reins. He got injured when he was in high school. He hurt his knee. He was he like I said, he played sports all throughout, but when he was in high school, sophomore year, he hurt his knee. And so he started to take pictures of the basketball team because he couldn't play. And so it was a great situation for him, great opportunity. The coach was really kind for him, but he gained popularity really quickly in his school. And then he, I think maybe his junior year is the first year he got an opportunity to be on the field at Oregon. He did, I think, 2 games his junior year. And then Max Torres, shout out if you know Max, hooked him up his senior year and got him press passes for the whole year. And he worked for Max with Ducks Digest for the whole year. He had a lot of success with that. He went to Oregon. He did not get on the Go Ducks team. He was super bummed, but the Go Ducks people put his name into the thing for other community members who were going to come and ask him for a job or whatever. Big Ten Network came calling and they hired him. And so he's the photographer for Big Ten Network. So he gets to do not only Oregon football, but he does basketball, he does volleyball, he does all the different games. So then he did Big Ten all last year, and he did it for other guys, John Canzano or Tyson Alger. And then over the last spring, he had the opportunity to work for the football team, and he worked for the football team all the way through the spring, all the way through the summer. And then in the fall, it came up that there's basically kind of a conflict of interest because he's got these jobs with these reporters to do these away games, and he's got the Big Ten Network. They were okay with the Big Ten Network, but they really weren't okay with him working these other games. They could not guarantee him to be on the field for their Oregon football press only gets 2 press passes, and that's already gone. There's veteran guys there, so he couldn't get on the field. So he had to make a decision. And as a sophomore in college, when he had basically the job that everybody wants, being the photographer at Oregon for the football team, he actually had to give it up. And he had to say, he talked with guys who were in that position before, and they said, hey man, you're in a better position with the Big Ten Network. It'll be fine. You'll still have your network with your football team. You could slide back in that in the future if possible or something, but he's in a really good place. So he does a great job, and I can't be more proud of him. It's great to see your kid be able to do something that they really enjoy, and it keeps them motivated. And that's the main thing through college. A lot of people kind of wade through college, not really know what they're going to do with it. He's got a real nice direction. He's got a focus, and he's getting paid. So you got to like that as a dad.
Especially in the J school these days.
Correct. Correct.
When I can just imagine how proud you must be, I can tell you as somebody who is able to take advantage of some of the things the University of Oregon has to offer in different ways like that, it's certainly a blessing to be able to do so. And I encourage anybody and everybody who can take advantage of those things to absolutely take advantage of those things. I know I wouldn't have the job I have now if it wasn't for that. And so many other people are probably in the exact same boats. Very proud of him at all the work he's doing. To get back to this football team just a little bit, talk about that Wisconsin game we saw before Nick gets us into this Iowa game coming up. I want to ask you a little bit. Let's just talk a little bit of X's and O's, what you saw out there, what happened in that game. Obviously, it started with a big bang, obviously, with the onside kick. But after that, a whole lot of nothing really happening until late in that first half. Would love to hear what you had to say about that.
X's and O's. So, Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin just plays Oregon tough. They played him tough last year. They squared him up pretty good. They collapsed the pocket. I mean, they made it uncomfortable for Dante. Feels like if Dante's got room with his feet, he's good to go. He doesn't really worry about anything. He doesn't try to leave the area. And I think that's the case for all quarterbacks. I mean, that's not brain surgery, but I think he just is such a different quarterback if he has to move off the spot. And Wisconsin just did a really good job there. I think also Wisconsin did a good job of running the ball. They knew that Oregon was having trouble with the run. They thought they could get 3 to 4 yards a clip. And I thought they were just going to continue to do that, try to run clock as much as possible, and just kind of stick to their game plan. And I think Oregon did enough big plays here and there. You know, they just really couldn't get it going. The first play I feel like they ever really got going was that play to McClellan when they were real deep in the end zone, and they got that first down over there on their sideline. That kind of pumped them up. I think that was probably the second quarter. So, I mean, it was definitely a slow start, but again, once the rains came, the crazy thing about it, you can't blame it on the rain because the Ducks, I thought, played the best in the heaviest rain. I thought when the rain was coming down the hardest, that was when they were really charging offensively and doing what they wanted to do. And so obviously, I mean, the weather had a role in the game for sure, but I thought Oregon played their best when it was raining the heaviest.
Yeah, agreed. And that's why it leads me perfectly into the next question. It seems like that Oregon is going into Iowa with a similar circumstance of maybe not ideal football weather. I know this is one of the few trips you don't get out to, but you've been talking to a lot of people in Iowa. What's the general impression of this Oregon Ducks team going on the road and going against a team that stylistically seems to really give teams like Oregon so many fits and problems with such an emphasis on defense and special teams?
Yeah, I mean, the Iowa people basically say that they have the best defense in the country every year. And they've had the best defense in the country, if not the best defense, one of the top 3 to 5 defenses in the country for like the last 10 to 15 years. They're like just one of those teams. They're almost like the Pittsburgh Steelers of college football, where they just can't figure out their damn offense. They can't get it right. Even if they have good quarterbacks in there, they don't look good. They can't throw the ball. They can't extend plays or get the explosives. Everything is 3 yards in a cloud of dust, or it's short stuff. It's intermediate stuff. I think actually when I put the tape on, they've actually thrown the ball pretty good this year. They don't throw it that much, but they've had success when they do, and they've gotten first downs with it. The big thing I think for Iowa is that they do what they do so well that they don't necessarily have to worry about their offense. I think they were winning 8 to 10 games with punting, because they knew that was like a part of their game. They could pin teams, they could figure it out, and they could outscore. I think there was a year where maybe their defense was close to outscoring their offense. And again, that's mind-blowing in the modern era. That is mind-blowing that could even be close, but that's the fact. So they do what they do. They know who they are. They're not afraid of it. They're not ashamed of it. And I think that Oregon, credit to Oregon, is in a much better position to play a team like Iowa now than they ever have been. And I think they can play a variety of different ways, including in a phone booth with these guys. And I also don't think the weather is going to be an impact. I think that if it starts to snow, maybe. But I think you're just going to have maybe some flurries in the air. I don't think it's going to get that low temperature-wise. They say 40s. But it's going to be rainy. It's going to be nasty. It's not going to be a good game. It's not going to be a fun game for the fans, I can tell you that much. You're going to be super bundled. But this is a great stadium. It feels a lot like Autzen. And who's better prepared than the Ducks to be in a stadium like that? So I don't think the crowd noise is going to be that big of a deal for them. And I don't think the conditions, the rain, I think a lot of that's overrated. I think Oregon's more prepared than almost any other team to face them in that kind of condition.
Well, I think it's been spoken about in terms of Oregon's opponents, but whether it's Indiana or whether it was Wisconsin, it seems like the times where Oregon's offense has had the hardest time getting up off the ground have been when they've been facing a whole lot of zone looks. What kind of looks do you think you're expecting to see from this Iowa team? Do they watch the tape and pick up any of those traits, or is there something specific that you're expecting to see from them against this Oregon team?
No, I think the same thing. I totally agree with that. And I think that again, I don't know if you want to play weather into it as that much for the coaching staff. I think the coaches are going to play what they're going to play regardless of the weather. But no, I think that modern college football is playing more zone because you think you're just much more explosive through the air than you ever have been. And you find pockets. If you can find pockets within the zone offensively and you force them to man up, then I think that's what the Ducks need to really do. And they have not been that successful in that. They have not really been successful in finding spaces where guys can sit down and you can force them to either give up on the zone completely or do some sort of zone man combination or whatever the case may be. But I think that the natural lineage of college football, where it's gone in the last 10 years, is they really want to keep everything in front of them, and they'll give up the, intermediate play, but not try to give up the big play. And I think that Iowa also is opportunistic as hell. So they are a team that wants to play zone so they can have multiple guys come at that pass, and they can have that safety roam. They can have that corner roam, and possibly have even a backer lean back and be able to really pick up. And that's where I think they actually are probably the most explosive, is in those backers when they drop back and they catch those interceptions. The quarterback never even sees it coming. And they've been doing that for years. That's a big Kirk Ferentz MO,
Yeah, and perfect thing. I wanted to touch on coaching, because Kirk Ferentz has been there as a offensive line coach the year I was born in 1989. and Coach Lanning just a couple years born before that. Something I know that personally about you is you are a coach right now, a golf coach, correct? For your high school. And again, looking at Ferentz, Lanning, Cristobal, all the coaches over the years, what are some of the things you've taken away from Oregon coaches that you apply to the things you do with coaching in golf?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, first and foremost, you left out Chip. Chip was a guy who was a revolutionary one for me. Chip was really a guy who
I left him out because it's unfair. He's taught me everything I know, obviously.
Yeah. Well, so, I got into education and, within the first 5 or 6 years, Chip took over, and he really made me think about meetings completely different. He made me think about how to spread information and how to share information and how to use your time more efficiently, and how to plan better, how to be more prepared for the future based on the fact that you're going to think about it in the off season as much as you possibly can when you have the time to think about it. And then when it's go time, you just go with it. You already have thought about it. You've already done the legwork on it. And that kind of stuff I think is really valuable. So for me as a golf coach, oh man, golf is the antithesis of every sport I've ever coached. Basketball is the sport I've coached the longest, and my voice would be gone. I would be, within 2 weeks, I'd already be completely hoarse for the next couple of months. At Christmas, I'd be talking to people like this. All right, you sound good. And in basketball, you never stop. You can't, literally, from the moment you get in the gym, you blow the whistle, you're talking, and you're either talking to your players one-on-one, or you're talking to the whole group, or you're screaming at full volume across the thing. Golf is completely opposite, but it's all based on relationships. And the big thing for high school golf is you got to continue to recruit. You constantly got to build your team. Every year you've got to basically reload, and you got to get the young guys as fast as you can to be able to join the team and be a part of it and be a part of something, because then they can grow it themselves. It's kind of almost like you're doing a pyramid scheme. You're trying to get everybody in on the thing, and got to get in the ground level, man. And so, yeah, it's super fun. But, coaching, the best part about coaching is the reward of coaching is just that kind of network, that relationship of you want what's best for the athlete, and the athlete is trying to achieve what's best for them. And for you to be a part of that journey, that relationship is absolutely solid gold. It's much more rewarding than ever was playing. Coaching is just, it's physically and emotionally draining. I don't think I've sweat harder than being a coach rather than being in the game. I remember right when I first started coaching, I wanted to wear the whole shirt and tie and sport coat and everything. And I was literally like direct Sean Miller. I when everybody made fun of Sean Miller, I was like, hey, no. Hey, whoa. Easy. You haven't been there. That's the type of shirt. It's a poly blend. Those poly blend shirts are not good. And I remember one game I was wearing a blue shirt like a complete idiot, and I was just gone. The whole thing was saturated. I felt like there was sweat on my tie. And I think you're one of those things where you get so invested, and as a player, not that you teach to not be selfish as a player, but I think it's always, you're kind of a little selfish as a player. You're thinking about your play. You're thinking about how much you have to do. You're thinking about this, that. Now, obviously think about the team as well, but when you're the coach, you have to think about everybody. you're constantly thinking about what everybody should be doing or everybody is doing or what's next or what's at halftime or what's after the game or is the bus going to be there or this, that. There's just so much other stuff going on. And I think the older you get, the wiser you get, the more fun it becomes. And yeah, it's a blast. The other sport I want to coach next, and I'll probably try to do my last 10 years, is swimming. Swim coach. Super fun. In the winter, warm, inside, in the pool. I mean, dude, get to get some pool time. Phenomenal. I did swim team when I was a kid. Swimming is like the ultimate, man. It's a real equalizer in the water. It's fun. Get to have the boys and the girls. That's the other fun thing about golf. I get to be the boys and the girls coach. So you get to kind of co-ed the thing up. It's fun.
Well, you know what? I think coaching is a great jumping off point to this next thing I wanted to ask you about. And I'm glad we've got somebody very well versed in Oregon history here to talk about it. Oregon is 5 head coaches removed from the last time they took on Iowa, which might seem like a lot, might not seem like a lot. It depends on which side of it you're looking from. But what I will say is that these two programs are in very different, but also not super different places than they were the last time they played. Last time they played, it was 1994. It was early in the season. Iowa was coming off of a loss from Penn State. Oregon was coming off of a couple losses. They wouldn't do that again until much later in the season, it turned out. Ended up being a big home win at Autzen. Running back duo of Whittle and P-Law were just phenomenal in that ball game. I want to ask you if there's anything that you remember from those old school, whether it was the 89 or the 94 matchups with Iowa. And just tell us a little bit about the last year of that Rich Brooks run in 1994 and what they were building to in that game and throughout that year.
Man, something special. I mean, I got my garbage can right there. I mean, my 94. There's the Iowa game right there. I mean, I can see it right there. Right after the Utah game, in between the Utah game and the USC game. USC game, very famous on that one because that was the one where Danny O'Neill had the infection on his hand, couldn't play. Graz had to play, saved the day on the thing. Very similar to the Harvey Wynn story of Dan Fouts being injured, going down to USC, and Harvey Wynn winning the thing. That's an old school one right there from the 70s. But yeah, no, that 94 year was amazing. It was my junior year in high school. I went to every home game that year. An incredible year. I mean, they lose at Washington State that year. They lose at Hawaii. Just the sky was falling. They won 9 games that year. Of course, everybody remembers the Kenny Wheaton play, but the week after was the craziest game as Arizona, number 1 defense in the country, complete dogfight, 10-9. It's just an incredible game, dude. Wilcox gets a touchdown in the end zone. There's so many great memories of that season. And then I was at the Civil War. The Civil War was at Corvallis. Walked out of the Corvallis with a rose in my mouth, dude. I mean, come on. But that Iowa game was something else because, you know, back then, it was so regional. College football was so regional. And so, you know, when you played these non-conference teams, most of the time, Oregon would get annihilated. So Oregon would always play Nebraska and lose by 50 or something. Be like, oh, great. And Iowa was a team, they came into town and you had the classic uniform matchup. I mean, it was a beautiful example of what was going on. And there were some really good non-conference games in those early 90s. I think the best one was the BYU game. The Ty Detmer, that second sack of Ty Detmer with the safety was the single loudest play moment I'd ever heard at Autzen before Kenny Wheaton. And it was just, it's a great time. That Rich Brooks year, you know, I don't think it was a different era. I literally think Rich Brooks could have been the coach at Oregon for another 10 years if he wanted to. I mean, I don't think anybody was trying to push him out. I don't think anybody was trying to get him to be the coach at a different job or anything like that. Oregon kind of struck lightning in a bottle a little bit. They had been building, though. Their 90 team, their 91 team. There were really good teams in the Pac-10 then, you know, and it was hard to kind of break through it. And then 94 just felt like something magical happened. And then, of course, at the end of the year, UCLA wins, right? That was a big deal, right? That was like at the end of the year, it's like, oh, what are we going to do? Because we had to like have chaos happen in front of us to even be able to get an opportunity to go to that game. This was also back in the day when we didn't have the extra game, when the Civil War was the week before Thanksgiving. So we played the Civil War game, we win it, and then we had the Thanksgiving week. And that's the one where I'm at my Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm just like, dude, I would do anything. I would literally do anything. I would hitchhike to Pasadena. And my aunt very famously said, "Oh, you don't need to hitchhike. We got you tickets right here." It was just like, the surprise of the freaking century. And at that point, we never thought we'd go to another Rose Bowl. Literally at that point, it was like, this is a literal once in a lifetime bucket list moment. We need to take advantage of this. Duck fans all across the universe knew this was their time to go there. Finally, we get to go to a Rose Bowl. And then the team we got to match up against, they said was the greatest team in college football history. Good. Perfect. So that started a whole kind of line of us going up against some of these iconic teams, you know. I mean, I've heard people say they think that Cam Newton might be the single greatest college football player of all time for one season. That's good. We played them and played them better than anybody in the whole thing, right? You know, and then you get Ezekiel Elliott, who's like a generational running back of his era. You know, you get these guys who became the rookie of the year in the NFL the next year. That's great. It's just, you know, at one time it'd be nice to be able to go up against a BYU team or something, or like a, you know, no offense to them, but might be this year.
Well,
one thing, hold on, before you do that, Nick, there was one thing I did have to ask and follow up about specifically with that Iowa game from 94.
Oh, yeah.
I did a rewatch of it just for my own curiosity earlier this week. Might have been throwing some highlights together for a Throwback Thursday. We'll see what happens.
Nice.
Regardless, the thing that stuck out to me, 2 blocked extra points in the first quarter.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw a special teams outing like that?
Dude, I'm telling you, it was a much, much more regular occurrence back in the 90s to be able to come off the edge. I don't know if it was the cowboy collars or the neck rolls or the high-waisted jerseys that were just so aerodynamic or something, but I don't know. I mean, I think that people were really trying to sell. I mean, I see, I'll give you an example of this. This is a thing that makes me feel old, is when you see guys who literally just stand there and watch the ball get kicked. I get it. There's got to be a safety valve somewhere to be able to do something for something, but these guys are just like hanging out. There's like no engagement at all for anything. I mean, it's like, oh, I get it. But I remember those days of having 2 gunners on either end to try to go at it, try to push the envelope as much as you could, try to launch yourself over I mean, there was some crazy stuff back then, you know?
yeah, I can actually answer that for both of you right there. Yeah, they saw people like me on the field goal team on tape and were like, we could rush right there on that guy. Especially the way my stance was all jacked up. If you guys ever saw the trading card from the 2012 season, it's me. I look like I don't even belong on a football field, and you don't know, like, oh, that if you don't know that that's my PAT stance, you're like, that guy should not be playing offensive tackle. No, he shouldn't.
Technique University.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to give you one last question on my part, and it's been kind of a trend this season. I've been the trendsetter. I've been the stylistic guy. You've seen a lot of great games in Autzen Stadium, Ryan. What is your Mount Rushmore of Duck uniforms?
And does tie-dye make that list now?
Wow. Oh, man. The Mount Rushmore of Duck uniforms. That's a good question. Okay, for me, this is just for me personally. This is just my own theory on it, right? Okay. One, I think the 94 year, right? The yellow pants, the green top, the yellow helmet with the stripe. I think that's just a very nostalgic thing. I'm very into that. The first one with the O, Joey Harrington. That's my guy. He's a year younger than me. I have to say, that mallard green, that changed the game. It was literally a game changer. A jersey I really liked was the first Nike jersey, the Pat Johnson up at Washington green pants with the white with the green helmet. Clean look. Kenyon Barner, all white stormtrooper in
USC,
the
baby.
Coliseum, dude.
Yeah.
Classic. You know, the other one though I loved was the spring game one with like the flying formation on the helmet, kind of like the duck almost like a jet kind of military type thing. That's when they were doing the military thing. That was a cool design, I thought.
2015 spring game, I believe, on that one.
Yeah. Because remember they had two different ones. They had one that was like green and one,
the green and then the black on the other team. Exactly.
Correct. Yes. I think the Ohana is really one of the of the specialty jerseys. I think the Ohana for me is super freaking sick. The helmet with like the stars on or whatever, like the galaxy type look. Oh man. I mean,
it was like Black Panther like come to life at the time.
Right. Really loved the retro look of the Civil War when Jeremiah Masoli won it with LaMichael. The yellow helmet with the green O. The green looked like the first Nike jersey that they did with the block lettering. That's a freaking clean look. I would have to say that's probably one of my favorite looks. That one is dynamo for me.
I'm glad you mentioned that one because I always point to that as like being the first modern classic uniform in that they took all those elements from the throwback, the 98 throwback or whatever it was from that Cal game earlier that year.
Yes.
Switched out the interlocking UO for the modern O, put the white pants on there. I always held the first modern classic look.
I love that. That blend of the old and the new is so cool. That's why I love the Van Horn stuff. I mean, we know we're all big Van Horn fans here, but they nailed that. They nailed that kind of throwback with the futuristic blend. I mean, how the hell you do that? I don't know, but
retro, not throwback.
Oh, I'm sorry, retro. Yeah, retro. Yeah. No, I think worst jerseys though. That'd be an interesting one to think about. I didn't like the Cal looking one against Washington. That was the flag. I liked where they were going with it with the flag, but I just didn't like how that really went off. And I didn't really like the rest of the gear that went with it, all the webfoot stuff. I didn't know if that was really on brand. The Lewis and Clark one was another one where I thought that was a little out there. It was kind of cool, but I thought the execution of it was very wild. It just looked very gray. It looked like a mummy of sorts. I didn't know about that one. And then
before you go on, quick question for you about both of those uniforms, because this is something that's been discussed with me and other uniform dorks before. Are each of those uniforms, both that the Webfoots one and that Lewis and Clark uniform, are they both improved with more of a heavy green look to them? Whether it's a super dark green instead of the blue, or some kind of a green intertwined with the gray.
Yeah, or even with more yellow with it too. I mean, it didn't really vibe the right way. It was kind of like I don't know. And I think those are both with like losses. Am I correct? That's Washington State.
Yeah.
And obviously the Washington game, which was a debacle. But yeah, had those been in wins, maybe a different. I think the other one is the one against Colorado with the orange socks, the duck one. I think that people are very split on that one. That one looks okay-ish to me, but I'm more of a traditionalist on that one. I don't necessarily need that. I like where they were going with it, but I just don't know if I need that. And then of course with the loss, I think that didn't help.
And it's technically titled the Once a Duck uniform. So
Duck uniform. Wow.
We have some mixed feelings here at the podcast. I just want to thank you for being such a great guest, because usually you ask people for their Mount Rushmore and you don't usually get their top 10 highest and lowest peaks.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, when you said Mount Rushmore, I knew I was going to blow right through that.
I love it. I just want
at least I didn't go back to 1916, 1917 Harvard team.
I just want the people that don't already cross over from your YouTube channel to ours to know that if you guys like this kind, like if you guys will ask him something in the chat, believe me, you will get like 110% answer from Ryan and Sport Chat 503.
I did like, thank you though, Nick. I did like though that in that Oregon uniform with the blue and gold that they did the old school UO, that's insignia that is like the original one. That I thought was dope. But yeah.
No, great. No, it's a great call there. And I think you hit on a point, whether you intended to or not, that I've always stood by with Oregon uniforms, which is that there aren't many rules, but using primary colors that aren't the ones you already use is kind of one of the only things you can't do, whether it's orange, whether it's blue, a primary or secondary color that's not already within that Oregon scheme is where you start jumping sharks, at least in my opinion. So I'm glad you mentioned those.
Yeah, and with the tie-dye thing, that was kind of my pushback was I didn't know if I loved the black with it. I thought that I get where they were going with it. I think that it applied to a different audience with that. And I do know that I think that they wanted to go much wilder with it, the original interpretation of it. But for me, I would have liked to see more green and yellow in that tie-dye, not just in the number, So. But that's just me. I'm a freaking, deadhead. What do I know?
Well, you know what? I think that's why we wanted to have you on. That's why we appreciate your take on it. That's why we know that you were going to be able to really set us up right with this one. Ryan, before you get out of here, plug anything you have going on, anything people need to check out, any place where they can check you out.
Oh man, the Tuesday night live stream, HOF's in the building. Dude, love it. Love the Tuesday night live stream. It's such a great community, super positive, great group of people come together, have fun, keep it light. I do videos each Sunday. I do kind of a retro, recap videos on the Big Ten and college football and the Ducks. And then this week, because I'm not going to be at the Iowa game, I'll be doing live stream right after the game, post game show type of stuff or whatever. Hopefully celebrating the hell out of it, man. And also the high school that I teach at, Mustangs, in the playoffs for the first time since 2017. First time
Milwaukee.
Yes, Milwaukee. First time they won the league since Latin Berry was there in 1985. Latin Berry, one of my favorite Ducks of all time, in a freaking phenomenal backfield of Latin Berry and Derek Lavelle. But yeah, dude, Latin Berry, man, his team was the last one to win league 1985, 40 years ago. So shouts out to Mustang. They're playing against Dallas on Friday night. So I'm going to go see hopefully a Mustang win on Friday night in Dallas, Oregon, not Jerry's World. And then I'm going to go, and then I'm going to go try to catch a win and watch it online and watch it and be ready to go. It's not on ESPN, right? I didn't do any ESPN negativity here. I kind of started my live stream ranting and raving about that situation. Disney overlord.
Don't get us canceled.
No, I'm not.
Don't worry. This is a Paramount Sky Day issue.
Hey, once again, guys, if you aren't already following him, go check out Sports Chat 503. You'll find me there at those Tuesday chats. And again, not only a great golf coach, somebody that has lent so much information for us guys on YouTube that want to sit here and talk Oregon sports, but also congratulations again. Just thanks for curating such a great community around you of supportive followers. And yeah, we'll always support you and always be glad to have you back on because, God, we sat here and just, 45 minutes just goes and fades away. So thanks for coming on again. Make sure you guys are following him, Sports Chat 503, and make sure you're following Darby Winter Photo because, always putting out the best stuff out there. And thanks very much for coming on. And once a Duck, always a Duck.
Once again, we want to thank Ryan so much for joining us. As always, you can follow at Sports Chat 503 to keep up with everything he's got going on. Nick, it's time to get into this Oregon-Iowa matchup, one that I think folks have been looking forward to throughout this season for a few different reasons. Number one, it's just a classic Big Ten opponent. This is the kind of game that you look forward to and you sign up for when you move over to the Big Ten. It's going to be some cold, possibly wet and windy weather. You're going to be down in one of the better, if not one of the best environments college football has to offer, some of the best traditions as well. And this Oregon team, they're going up against a top-tier defense and an offense that, although historically, recently, and long-term, hasn't always been the most explosive, put up the most points, they're one that this year has a lot that they can throw at you in different ways. And primarily, that's worked throughout the season so far. I'm curious, just first and foremost, anything you've seen from this Iowa team, anything that's caught your eye about the Hawkeyes?
Well, first and foremost, it's not easy to travel across country, but the wave and the opportunity that this gives you at Iowa, man, that does feel like something really special I didn't get to experience in my college career that these guys are going to get to experience that I'm really excited for them to get. And especially as a guy that has so much cancer in my family. I was at Dornbecker's Children's Hospital for a period of time. Thyroid cancer, for those of you that don't know, thyroid removal. In the treatment and all that, and everything that goes in that. I'm so glad we have a coaching staff that can also like figure out a way to embrace that and make that kind of a motivational kind of thing. So going into this game, I'm really excited about the opportunity for all these players to play in some place they've probably never been in their lives, someplace I'll never get to play, and with an opportunity to inspire so many people going through a difficult situation. With that all aside, it's going to be a really, really tough situation. Thank goodness we've already had that Wisconsin game to really test the mettle of this team, because you're not going to any favorable situations going down into Iowa right now.
None at all. And this is a team that, again, has a really good defense historically, a defense that's going to get after you, and also some special teams units that are some of the best in the country. Big Iowa in the punting game, honestly, both returning and kicking, has been so notable over the last few years for such a good reason. It's going to be an absolute battle for the Ducks to deal with this team. And you know what? This Iowa offense, they can move the ball. Maybe it's not the most high flying of teams, but they can make it happen, especially with quarterback Mark Gronowski, who is the 6'2 senior, number 11. A little bit more, more of an air guy as far as Iowa is concerned. 946 passing yards this season. He's got 4 touchdowns to go along with 4 interceptions. More of what he's able to do, though, is on the ground. He's got 11 rushing touchdowns this season to go along with 313 yards on 76 carries. That's 4.1%. That's 4.1 yards on average, I should say. He also has a long of 67 this year, meaning that if he has the space, he can go pick up some yards for sure. I'm very curious, Nick. Oregon, they haven't been the best this year dealing with quarterbacks who can both throw it and run it. In fact, I believe there's a statistic out there that'll show Oregon's one of the weaker teams in the Big Ten, specifically at dealing with kind of read option situations. So with a stable of backs that's very talented, with a quarterback that can get out there and move around, has 11 rushing touchdowns, what do you think this Oregon defense needs to look out for?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing this Oregon defense needs to look out for is trusting your coaching. Do your job and trust your assignment, because whenever you're playing a quarterback that has the option to run, it's always that you get caught up dealing with someone else's assignment, right? If you give that split second and you don't already, you think you need to cover for someone else, you could be taking the wrong step in the wrong direction to be able to cover for your own job and your own play. And that's when a great quarterback can take advantage of you. Thankfully, I think in this game, we're not going to have to worry so much about that. Is our defense really needs to get more guys to the football. In weather conditions like this, the more guys you get attacking the football and at the point of contact, the more chances you get for a turnover. So I think the big thing going there and being on the road, if you can get them to cough up the football, that is going to be so much bigger than any individual contribution you can make on the football field.
Well, you know what? I think that there's something so right to what you're saying, just in that I think a lot of what happens when you see this Oregon team defensively making mistakes, it's guys trying to take care of too much at once. It's saying, "Oh, this is where the defender, I need to get here, I need to make here, I need to be at this spot." And a lot of the time you see that over pursuit leading to issues for this team. We often talk about, well, it seems as if Oregon safeties have to come up and make a lot of plays and make a lot of tackles. Fair amount of those are after a linebacker over pursues, or after a linebacker tries to do too much and isn't able to make the simple play that they need to make. So I really like that idea for this Oregon defense. Just go in there, do their jobs, follow their assignment. I think that's going to be huge and crucial for this game. Opposite of that, I think Oregon's offense actually has to do something very, very similar. And that's just going to be trusting your coaching and making the simple plays work. This is an Iowa team that has a very strong defense against some very solid teams this year. They've done a very good job. So I'd love to hear from you. You're playing an Iowa team that obviously has a very stout defense, has some very, very good coaching in that defensive room. What do you think the Ducks need to do to be able to put up points in this ballgame?
You need to absolutely go out there, line up one-on-one and show hat for hat why you can go there and play and win on first down and get positive yardage. If you can get 4 yards on first down, you set up the entire offensive playbook. If you can't do that, you need to figure something out on second down that gets you into a manageable third down. And it sounds very, very simple. There's so many ways to do it. Will Stein, this is going to be an important game for him to show. Because honestly, guys, there are so many coaching opportunities out there right now. A guy like Will Stein has the ability in this game right now to get himself an elite coaching opportunity going into next season. And man, this is your opportunity to script it out, whether you get the ball or on the first position or the next. I would be sitting there as Coach Stein and sitting in and thinking, I'm going to utilize every single back that we have in this backfield to set up the run, because the conditions from this game out get everybody a little bit of a touch, a little bit of a taste of the football, and get our offensive line in motion. One guy we didn't really talk about, man, right tackle Harkey. He has his moments where he gets you a penalty. And myself, ashamed as any right tackle in Oregon football, I take my responsibility. This guy Harkey has owned that, because this guy can get multiple pancakes in the single play. He's shown it. Just go out there, run the football down their throats, trust all your backs, make sure everybody takes control of the football, and make sure the biggest thing is at the end of the play, we still control the football. We're going to get positive yardage if we trust our offensive linemen and run this run game. That's the biggest thing I think we need to trust in these conditions, especially going to a place like Iowa, where they usually set these things up for teams like Ohio State or Penn State or someone to die. It can't be Oregon, because Oregon has to establish that tone on the line of scrimmage.
Well, you know what? Credit to Iowa. They almost got that game earlier this year against Indiana. They lost that one just by 5 points,
Yep.
a 20-15 final. Also, a fun note talking about this Iowa defense, the games they've lost this year, they gave up 20 points in a loss to Indiana, They gave up 16 in a loss to Iowa State. Those are the two losses. Gave up 16, gave up 20. Those are point totals where maybe you don't win every game where you give up 20, but you're winning a whole lot of games like that. You're winning most games like that, in fact. Another one that was a huge win at home for them, they were able to beat Penn State in their last gasp of effort, 25-24, a big game. This was one where the quarterback Gronowski went for 130 yards on the ground. So they've shown that they can get it done when they need to, and they're going to rely on the defense heavily to do so. I'm really glad you brought up Alex Harkey, because there's some work that this Oregon offensive line is going to have to do, especially when it comes to dealing with this defensive front of Iowa. They've got some really, really talented players out there. One that's immediately sticking out to me, Max Llewellyn. He's got 10 total tackles on the year, 6 sacks. 6 sacks, a couple of forced fumbles as well. The 6'5" senior is somebody Oregon is going to definitely have to look out for. Also along the D-line, Herkett, excuse me if I messed that up, I probably did. Herkett and Graves, they each have 4 sacks on their own as well. This is an Iowa team that can absolutely get to the quarterback.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's the biggest thing. This Oregon offensive line is probably going to set the tone right here. Can't start the game out like we did against Indiana with having a sack on the very first play. Man, you got to set the tone, set the line of scrimmage. And if we're going to pass the ball, man, you need to give whoever is back there the time of day. And if we honestly should, given the weather conditions that we're predicting, go out there and establish the tempo downfield, set up downfield blocks, set up the double teams, push those guys directly into the guy you're double teaming to. This offensive line has that ability, especially in the interior. Those tackles, man, it's been World and Harkey. It feels like if we could ever get both those guys at the same time on the same page, this offensive line would be perfect. But fortunately, that feels like the biggest inconsistency right now.
Well, cohesion is absolutely key. I'm very much hoping that we can see Oregon's offensive front have that. I hope the entire offense can be cohesive in that way because this is an Iowa team that is very, very good at just taking advantage, whoever it might be in the position to do so. One place where that really stands out to me, if you look at the interception total for Iowa this season, they've picked off their opponents 9 times this year. Only one player has more than one interception, and it's the safety Lutmer, and he has 2.
Yep.
So
And,
besides that, that means you have 7 other guys who each have an interception this year.
and that's a credit to Kurt Ferentz. Like, this is a coach that was coaching offensive line. I was born 1989, the year I was born. He is coaching offensive line for the same team. So you got to give it up to this coach and the way he's able to coach this defense. If there is something they haven't seen, it hasn't been invented in college football yet. You understand that?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say he's going to be one of probably only 5 people who was actually in the building the last time Oregon was. And so, my goodness, it is going to be he's somebody who spent so much time building up this team, building up this defense. They are going to be a lot of fun to watch. Quick little special teams note that I wanted to hit on here. Their kicker, Stevens, also 26 of 27 on extra points, 16 of 21 on field goals. I'm not saying that that's automatic by any means, but their kicking game is pretty solid.
Well, hopefully our special teams can be what, Sam?
Special.
I love it. Hey, you know what, guys? I want to thank everybody out there for following us because you are the most special audience we've ever seen, especially that Sports Chat 503. Anybody I've seen in the chat, most special audience ever. So with that, I want to get down. Sam, we got predictions, and not everybody's going to agree, but we finally heard from enough of our audience. Like, our predictions are usually so close, we actually need to put it down in pen and paper before we share it with our audiences. So, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go, Nick. I do really quickly want to hear from you, though, before we get to the actual numbers. Just generally, keys to the game. What do we have in terms of like our actual, what Oregon needs to do?
I've got you right here. All you need, guys, run the ball, stop the run, special teams,
be special.
All right, those are my 3 keys. And honestly, if you have a prediction of bad weather, those Bilotti keys are going to keep you tuned in to everything you need to know, and we can keep it very, very simple with that.
Well, you know what? I tend to agree in terms of stopping the run, being able to bring down some of their young backs. They've got some freshmen and sophomores in that running back room that are very good. Kamari Moulton's one that really comes to mind, 5'9", 205 pounds sophomore. 435 rush yards on the year on 82 carries. That's over 5 yards per carry. He also has a couple of touchdowns. He's going to want to add to that total this week. Stopping the run will be huge. Being able to run the ball, especially on first down, to keep this team out of long to-go situations is going to be massive. And then, special teams being special, that's always a key.
All right, with that, Sam, how are you feeling about your prediction right now?
Terrible. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah. I think that's what a bye week does to all of us. It feels like, again, with getting this podcast again back on track, that off week, it's always appreciated because after that last game, I was only able to dry out my phone after a bye week. But now I'm sitting here trying to predict. We can't actually be at the game. So with my feel for it, I am mid-confident, but I am willing to share my prediction first. Guys, everybody out there, have it written down right here. I have it, Oregon Ducks, 28-20. I think, honestly, we come up early, and, we get the over, but I do think we're going to be getting a little nervous there at the end as Iowa is able to kind of mount a little bit of defense. Amount a little bit of offense and offensive production there in the storm that we get there in Iowa City. What do you think, Sam?
Well, I'm laughing because, as usual, Nick, our predictions aren't terribly far apart. In fact, the numbers you put up are ones that I was very much thinking, oh, that's not a
Very
bad one.
much. Very much.
I was like, oh, that could be.
People, just so you know, he's writing right now.
No, I'll
And
tell you what, I'm pulling it up on
nope.
my phone so it's big enough to actually see on the screen, because I've got right here 29-24 Oregon final. I'm right in there with you. I think this is going to be one of those games where, as November comes along, we start to get a little bit deeper into the bag of Dan Lanning's special teams plays. And I think this is another one where we might get a 2-point conversion in this game that they actually allow to count. I know there's been several special teams scores in the last couple of weeks that have been called off due to penalty. I'm willing to say this is the week where one of those stands. Also, it just feels like getting 4 touchdowns is going to be tough in this ball game, but it feels like about where I expect Oregon to be at. 24 for Iowa, just because in weeks past I've had more faith in Oregon's ability to hold teams to field goals. Unfortunately, it seems as if they've had a little bit of a difficult time, especially in the red zone with short yardage situations. And because of that, with the talent that Iowa has in the running back room, I think they are going to probably put up a few touchdowns. Oregon gets a win, though. 5-point victory. They don't beat the spread, but they beat the Hawkeyes 29-24.
Well, and then something you have to consider in those 2-point scenarios is if you are in bad conditions, why not just line it up and kick it? That's one of those things I was sitting there going, that's the difference between 27 or 28 in my prediction. But thankfully, the Once a Duck is not podcast is not something anybody's been trusted for their spreads recently, but we're trying to get there.
This has been a particularly difficult year for predicting scores. We've been off, I think, probably more dramatically this year than in years past.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that is we kind of underestimated that rain last week. I give a lot to that, and there's times that we do lean on a little bit of the sign of being homers, but that's why we get great guests like Ryan Winter on this program. And guys, if you want to see another Oregon homer, let us know down in the comments because we're down to have them all day.
Anybody and everybody you guys want to see on this show, let us know. Give us a tag. Give them a tag, too. That doesn't hurt either. May as well get it across the dashboard some way or another. But, folks, we're looking forward to this ball game. Obviously, if you want our takes throughout the game and throughout the Oregon football season, you can follow him at Nick R. Cody. You can follow me at Samuel101TS, and you can follow the show at Once a Duck on all of your social medias. Nick, unless there's something I'm forgetting, unless there's something else you got to say, what do we have to tell the people before getting out of here?
We have to tell them like, subscribe, and let everyone know. Once a duck, always a duck. If you're one of us, share the podcast, enjoy it. Thank you for joining us.